It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Locked On Lakers podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin. I'm joined by Pete Zayas. Pete, what's it like to record a show with the second best Anthony that you know?
I don't think there's any shame in being the second best Anthony to that guy.
I gotta say, I told you this before we went live. You know how sometimes you have a good feeling about a shot, even as the guy's going up?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
As he released it, and especially after he released it, because you can kind of chart the trajectory of the shot. I told Jen, as the shot was going up, that's bottom. That's going in. That's going in. It was the exact same shot he took, maybe a minute prior. Just this time he wasn't dribbling with it. And you made the point on Twitter, basically, is like, how many other guys his size not just make that shot, but make it look like a guard is shooting that shot?
Yeah. No, that's the thing, is his coordination is insane. And we've always looked at Anthony Davis as a big man. I almost wonder if we should look at him as a big wing because his footwork and his coordination and he's a guy who can hit you a game winner in the conference finals while moving to his left. Like, he wasn't stationary when he shot that ball. No. That requires pulling up and, getting on balance and getting your momentum from going forward to going up and while moving to the left a little bit.
Catching a pass that you didn't see the basket as you're shooting it.
Right. Just like all of the skill level that it takes to make that shot. And like you said, it was not oh, that's a lucky shot. It was, everything looked so good. You're like, oh yeah, that's money.
Yeah.
And it was. It didn't even touch the rim, man. That shit was pure.
Yeah.
And the ability to do that at his size and be the best defensive player in the NBA, he's nuts, man. And he's, I think, rewriting the story of where he kind of ranks in the pecking order in the NBA, because he's having a historic playoff run right now.
I don't think I'm outing Adam in saying this, but one of the conversations we have all the time regarding LeBron is that if he was drafted by the Lakers, he'd have 9 championships or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I think we're kind of also seeing with Anthony Davis, what happens when he plays for an organization that, for whatever reason, whether you want to say it's because of the market, whether you want to say it's because of, Laker fans will point to the organization's history itself, whether it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, whatever. But the Lakers do, they attract it. The Lakers attract the kind of talent that helps optimize the career of its great players. Mm-hmm. And the kind of narrative about, and I hate that word, but the narrative or the story about Anthony Davis before the series or before these playoffs was super talented guy, had a insane series against Portland, but his teams didn't do much in terms of winning. And, people were wondering why that was. And it's it doesn't help that while he was a New Orleans Pelican, one of their headlines, one of their press releases that they were really proud about was that, hey, we finally have a training staff devoted solely to the Pelicans, not one that was shared between the Saints and the Pelicans. And it's you're shocked that a guy playing in an organization like that or for an owner like that might fall short of the expectations that come with his talent level. And it's not to say maybe he performs like this with the Celtics. Maybe he performs like this with the Spurs. Maybe he performs like this with other, high level organizations. But I personally, I think one of my favorite things to watch right now is the story be rewritten on Davis on not only is he talented, but he's a goddamn winner.
He's a guy who has a playoff gear, right? Like, this is a better player than we saw during the regular season. And that's not true of every superstar. Like, this is a bad MFer, man. Like, he's either second or third all time in points per game in the playoffs.
Mhm.
And that comes with those, because when he's with the Pelicans, he's having these monster games, but there's nobody else that does. And LeBron had a rough second half tonight, but he's still a 26-11 guy, right?
Yeah.
In a game where he didn't play that well in the second half. So AD, like, so much of the story that's written around a guy is tied to team success, but so much of team success is out of one player's control, right? Like the very, very greatest of all time. And even a guy like AD is responsible for a great number of wins, but like nobody can do it on their own. And I think we need to celebrate more of what guys can do than ways that they've fallen short.
We saw
in
the
a
shot
team
itself.
construct. Right.
Like the
Yeah,
shot
man.
itself, people were like jumping on Plumlee. I'm like, did you just see the shot that a 7-footer just made?
Right.
Why are we talking about this dude who looks like a hot dog? Why are we talking about that guy? Let's talk about Anthony Davis making an insane shot.
Yeah, no, he's a special guy, man. There's only one guy like him in the NBA. Which is not to say that he's the best player in the NBA, although I think he's putting himself more and more in that conversation, considering all that he does on the defensive end, right? Like, if you're the best defensive player in the league, which I believe AD is, and if you don't believe he is, he's right near the top. If you're the best defensive player in the league, how good do you have to be on the offensive end to be the best player in the league, right? Like, he's not the best offensive player in the league, but some of the mid-range stuff that he's doing, the floaters, and he hit this elbow pull-up that he looked like Kevin Durant, man. Like, from mid-range, he's just been absolutely stunning. And it adds a component to this team that LeBron isn't really a mid-range guy, but in the playoffs, like, you need that option, that triple
that
threat.
second-level score.
And just like that it's just so Kobe-esque, right? Like, these moves, the catch and face up and jab step and rip through, and it's this style of play that, when stacked on top of LeBron, like if you got a LeBron style and then you can do that too, it's covers so many of the bases of what you need to be a great team. And we didn't deserve to win this game, but like, we won a Western Conference Finals game, like playing like we barely cared for, in the second half, right?
Yeah.
And it's on large part the strength of the guy who gave us the last 10 points of the game in Anthony Davis. And just our margin for error is just so huge because of his addition to the team.
Yeah, as you were talking about, like, adding a player who can score on the spots on the court that AD can score on, it reminded me. So Tim Kirksham was on Le Batard, and he was asked to compare some young pitcher who pitches for the Marlins to Pedro Martinez, and they asked him, like, how close is this kid to Pedro, and he's like, nobody's ever going to come close to Pedro. And he said, because he's the only pitcher in his lifetime. And I agree. And this is me complimenting a dude who played for a Boston team who the Dodgers fucking gave away. But he said that Pedro is the only pitcher he's ever seen who has, at one point, the best fastball in the league, had the best curveball in the league, and had the best changeup in the league. And you look at having LeBron on your team, right? That's your best fastball in the league. You have the Lakers defense, right? Which when they want to, put the clamps down, that's your best changeup in the league. And then you have Anthony Davis being able to score at the spots on the court that he can score. That's the best curveball in the league.
Yeah.
Being able to have all three of those things, I don't want to jinx it. I'm knocking on wood, like, as I'm talking about this stuff. But this really feels like one of those years, man. This feels like one of those years for the Lakers.
Bro, we're in the Western Conference Finals, and when the Lakers are locked in, it looks like varsity versus junior varsity.
Yeah.
It really does.
Amen. All right, let's take a quick second here. When we come back, there's a lot to talk about this game. We got to, unfortunately, because of the way the Lakers played, we have to talk about why they coughed up the lead in the first place. We have to talk about, the rest of the series from this point on. There's plenty of stuff here to get to. So let's take a quick second, pay a couple bills. When we come back, we'll touch on the rest of this. Today's show is brought to you in part by Built Bar. Built Bar has been a huge savior, really, to the show, but also to me personally, because raising Avery on my own while the Lakers are on this long playoff run during a pandemic in which Jen is out there working 9 to 5 with kids who in some cases have to be quarantined, has been stressful AF, as the kids say. And the one thing that I have had to kind of lean on here in moments where I'm just stressed out, I had forgotten to eat or whatever, has been Built Bar. I really can't say this enough. Built Bar has been incredible. I've shown it to my brother-in-law. I've shown it to my neighbors. I have a neighbor of mine 2 doors down who is really into working out and stuff. And I saw that he eats protein bars, and I just told him, you gotta try Built Bar. Just go to BuiltBar.com. I told him, go to BuiltBar.com and then use promo code Locked On, and you'll save $10 off your order. Not just your first order, but every order. And he did. We watched the Vikings game together. He's from Minnesota. We watched the Vikings game together, and he told me it was incredible. So check out BuiltBar.com. Use promo code Locked On to save $10, not just off your first order, but every order you put in from that point forward, and you'll be saving a ton of money on a just tremendous product, which it doesn't get any better than that. I mean, it gets a little bit better sometimes with Anthony Davis knocking down game winners, but this is like right there, right? So yeah, just go to BuiltBar.com, use promo code Locked On.
Hi, this is Nate Duncan from the Hollinger and Duncan NBA show, and I'm really excited to bring Helix Sleep to the Locked On Podcast Network as an advertiser. I've been sleeping on a Helix Sleep mattress since 2015. I found them well before they were an advertiser for me. We tried another mattress delivery company that was one size fits all. It was terrible. We both developed back pain. We had to return it. And so my wife then found Helix Sleep. And the reason it's so much better is because it's actually made for you. You take that 2-minute sleep quiz that they have and you fill out whether you want a soft or a firm mattress, whether you sleep on your side or your back or your stomach, you sleep hot, you sleep cold. With Helix, there's a specific mattress for each and everybody's unique taste. Even my cat, you probably hear purring in the background. He loves Helix Sleep as well. Helix Sleep makes their personalized mattresses right here in the US, and it ships straight to your door with free no-contact delivery, free returns, and a 100-night sleep trials. You don't have to take my word for it. Or GQ magazines or Wired magazines, who also rated them their #1 best overall mattress pick of 2020. Go to helixsleep.com/LockedOnNBA, take that 2-minute sleep quiz, and they'll match you to a customized mattress that will give you the best sleep of your life. And right now, they are offering their best deal ever, up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows. Get up to $200 off at helixsleep.com/LockedOnNBA, the name of this network.
All right, so I want to talk about, why the lead was coughed up. And this is one of the things, I don't mean this sounds pejorative of the team that the Lakers are playing. I don't mean it that way. But so far this postseason, the moments where the Lakers have struggled has been because of the things that the Lakers are doing to themselves, or the things that the Lakers are or are not doing, right?
Yes.
And it felt to me like that was the what we were saying again in the second half here, that the Lakers being careless with the ball, not getting out and running their sets super slow, getting into their offense really late in the shot clock. Those are things that the Lakers can control. It wasn't those. I think some of the transition stuff was some of the things that Denver was doing.
Yeah, Denver played good transition defense, but by like 80% of what went wrong for us was self-inflicted. Is that the kind of thing, like, do you think those are fixable things, or do you think we'll see those things pop up again this series, I guess? I think they'll pop up again because it's the personality of this Lakers team.
Yeah. Like, God forbid you give us anything easy.
Well, they feel like they have it under control, and they probably do. But I thought, like I said before the game to a friend, that if we were going to lose a game, it was going to be this one. That may be true of game 3 now, because we did not get the lesson necessarily. So that's what's important about this game, is that like the film room session tomorrow is that they treat it like a loss, right? Yeah. Because you can't play like that for longer than we did, just enough to beat them, and had to beat them on a game winner in a way that, are we going to do that again where we feel like we're fine, like whenever we want to, we can turn it on? I would love to see them put together, a full 48. But yeah, the vast majority of it was self-inflicted. Denver's transition defense was good. They cut and moved well off of the ball. We made a lot of mistakes on the defensive end where, like, there's one play where AD doubled Jokic in the post off of Murray, one passed away, and Murray hit the spot up three. But and then Denver was really collapsing into the paint on LeBron's drives. And it was a really rare instance of LeBron holding it a beat too long, not making the right kick out read to the strong side, which is where they were sending help from. It was, just like a lot of self-inflicted stuff like that, where the one thing that I thought Denver did that will be useful for them going forward is they played more of their athletes, and they looked for, so like PJ Dozier gave them good minutes. Michael Porter Jr. is the type of guy who, like, he hit this three over a great closeout by Kuz, but it's like Michael Porter Jr. is 6'10" and can elevate on his jumper.
Yeah.
And so
he has the potential to be special.
Right. And so, like, Denver has some guys that can hang with us athletically, and they really needed to lean on them in this game. And they did, more so than they did in game one. And so that's something that we'll need to deal with more going forward. But with those guys, there's some of the mental aspects of the game and the skill aspects of the game where we can take advantage of them, but we won't if we're not as mentally engaged. And that's really what I thought the second half was a lot of mental engagement. Took a ton of jump shots, just everything that was just the easiest possible route. We weren't worried about them. Let them catch up and pulled out the victory. But, like, we can have those lapses, but we have a massive margin for error, and we used up all of it in this game tonight.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. One of the things that I'm still kind of waiting for from Denver, on Denver's side of things, is them trying to foul to limit some of the transition stuff. You look at their guard foul numbers, right? Like Jamal Murray had no fouls. Gary Harris committed no fouls. Torrey Craig had 3. Monte Morris had 0 fouls. Dozier only committed 1. And, now what you got to watch out for is because of the amount of fouls the Lakers get elsewhere, you don't want to put them in the bonus too early. But I almost think it's somewhat worth it for Denver to give it a shot just so that the Lakers fall out of rhythm. Like, what you don't want the Lakers to fall into is any kind of a rhythm where they make a habit out of get a stop, get out in transition, and look dominant. And even if it means that you're gonna give up a few points at the free throw line, that means that the Lakers aren't in transition. They aren't playing in that way. And I'll be interested to see if Michael Malone goes in that route to limit the Lakers in transition, because we know what it looks like. We now have 2.5 rounds of playoff basketball to see. Like, the one thing you cannot allow the Lakers to do is get out in transition. And this is one of the ways, like, this is one of the things that you and I and Adam talked about, was how are they going to use their fouls in the backcourt to make sure that some of these runouts don't occur.
Yeah, no, that is the Lakers get a lot of that off of their defense, though. So I don't know how much Malone can, like, they're not sending anybody to the offensive glass to help limit the Lakers from running in that respect. You're going to want to, form a wall, and there's not enough fear of our pull-up shooters, although Danny Green hit 1 or 2. Those will be available, those kind of step-in threes for KCP and Danny Green. But, yeah, by and large, Denver can do something to a point, but again, it's like an 80-20 split of are we defending and are we – because, like, when you get out in transition and it's LeBron running against Jamal Murray and Jokic and AD rim running, like, there's only so much Mike Malone can do to make up for that.
Yeah, that's where honestly, like, that's where I would – if I were Malone, I would just tell Murray, dive at a player to make sure you get a foul there. Like, we just, to do whatever you can possibly do. Because once the Lakers fall into that rhythm, we saw what it looks like in the first half. Like you said earlier, it's a varsity against a JV team. Yeah. But we also know what it looks like when the Lakers rely on their half-court offense. And it looks like a JV team versus a JV team. Let's take a quick second here. When we come back, I want to talk about the series moving forward. I want to look at the other teams on the other side of the bracket here, between Boston and Miami, because it looks like at this point the Lakers will probably be moving on I'm interested in who you prefer to face there. So let's take a quick second, come back and talk about that.
The Locked On Podcast Network is home to the #1 daily NBA podcast, Locked On NBA.
I think the Lakers thought that they were going to impose their size on Houston. I think what they realized, and I think what everybody kind of realized was, wait, the Lakers can kind of go small, but still be significantly bigger because Anthony Davis can still be able to hang on the court. There just wasn't anything Houston could do to adjust to that adjustment.
When you want the biggest stories and the best NBA talk before it's old news, listen to the Locked On NBA podcast every day, wherever you get your podcasts.
One quick thing before, we kind of start to not write off, but, look ahead beyond the Denver Nuggets is this. I think the way that the NBA is presented by way of its partners is a serious hindrance to the league itself. The Denver Nuggets are not nearly as highly regarded as they should be, given how talented that team is, how good they're probably going to be next year, by the way. Like, Jamal Murray's going to continue to get better. Jokic isn't as old as you think he is based on the way he moves. Michael Porter Jr. is probably going to be significantly better next year. This is a good team that not nearly enough people knew about heading into the series, or even heading into the series they had against the Clippers. And I just think this is me just asking ESPN and asking TNT and asking the NBA itself and the schedule makers, please put a team like this on in national TV games more often, so that this is the depth of the league is its strength, and all that we tend to hear about with the league is how great the Lakers are, and oh my God, what might it look like if they play the Clippers, and oh my God, what might it look like if they play the Bucks, and I just think it's a serious hole in terms of strategy that the league is participating in, that I hope they fix, because Denver's way too cool a team for people only to be finding about right now.
Yeah, no, they execute at a really high level. They've been together for a while, so they've got the cohesiveness that comes with just time spent playing together. They're a fun team to watch, and yeah, we've discussed this a bit just in terms of how teams are presented, but they're a team that hopefully their run in these playoffs, I think small market teams in particular have to do something to get everybody's attention. Mm-hmm. And that's fleeting, right? Because like Milwaukee did that, but then they don't go as far in the playoffs as, they get knocked out by Toronto last year. And then this year, It's like they're on a 70-win pace, and people are like, we'll see in the playoffs. And then in the playoffs, they're everything that was probably the hardest part. And I saw Ben tweet this, Ben Thompson, who's a big Bucks fan, like, we were everything that our critics said we were, and that sucks, right? Yeah, sucks. Like when you're like that, when you spend all year like, right? Yeah, you guys will see. Yeah. But Denver's a team that, like you said, that Jokic is 25, Murray's 23, Porter is 20, right, or 21.
Yeah, he's young,
and so they have staked a claim as you have to do something to get people's attention. And I think they have done that in these playoffs. Let's hope that carries forward and that the league really promotes them as such, and they continue to grow.
Yep. All right. Let's now throw dirt on their grave.
Yes, let's do that.
But I feel like this is a sweep, man. This is a 4 or 5 game series at this point. Am I oversimplifying this? I just feel like this is the game that Denver probably should have won. They might win one from here on out, but the Lakers are pretty clearly the better team at this point.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this has felt like a 4 or 5 game series since the beginning, just based on the matchup. Like, Denver's a very good team. We're also a particularly bad matchup for them due to our athleticism. That's an area where they're weak. Yeah, and so this did feel like that game, although we saw in this game the combination of Denver's resilience and our complete ability to just completely take our foot off the gas. Like when we do it, it's very apparent. Like I don't think you need to be some X's and O's genius to like be like, yeah, not really.
They don't care
not
anymore.
going as hard. Yeah, right. And so Denver can take a game at any point as a result of that. But when we're playing close to what we're capable of, just from an intensity and focus standpoint, this series doesn't look that close to me. I don't see how they win a game without us really taking our foot off the gas, which is totally possible.
Yeah, I if they win one again, I don't mean this pejoratively. It sounds like it. I don't mean this as any kind of a knock against Denver, but if the Lakers lose a game, it'll be because of something we saw tonight, right? Or last night, is that, they got up by enough. And, we saw, so one of the lines actually really was echoing in my head during the game was Adam said, they have the most comebacks from 15 or more in the NBA this year, the Nuggets do. And he says, now that means a lot that you're getting down by 15 that often. Mm-hmm. But the fact that they're resilient enough to come back from it also means a lot. And, basically you either those games go in one of two ways, where they take advantage of a complacent team and they come back and they yank the carpet out from under you, the rug out from under you, or they lose by 30, mm-hmm. And we've seen both versions of those games now.
Sure.
And with that said, I do think usually you need to lose a game to really learn that kind of a lesson, but it does feel like the kind of game that the Lakers learn enough from without having to learn the hard way. It's like, this is a Western Conference team. This is a team that knocked off the Clippers. This is a team that in some stretches of their games and in the back end of that series embarrassed the Clippers. And that was a Clippers team, by the way, that a lot of people would have favored if you guys were to face off against. And you can't fuck around with a team like this. And I feel like that's kind of where we're at with this Denver team, is like, you can't mess around with a team like this. We saw what might happen there. And fortunately, like, we're talking about the AD shots that he made, but Kentavious Caldwell-Pope makes that three in the corner that was like a Kobe three. Remember that old?
Uh-huh.
It so
you just
much
like hang
Kobe.
There and like, rip it over to the right and let it fly. Yeah.
Or not even rip it. Like, he was just like, I think the ball was in his like right side. He's just like,
just raised up with it. Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And it looked like, so, the Lakers are a KCP Kobe three away from dropping this game to the Denver Nuggets. And in that respect, I know sometimes it's human nature to say, we won anyway. But I think, like, with the prize being as close as it is, LeBron smells the blood the way that he can. He understands that the market inefficiency in these playoffs from here on out is going to be rest, and he can get some rest if they finish these next two games off as quickly as possible.
Yeah, they just have to have an appropriate level of respect and fear of the Denver Nuggets, and if they do that and treat them seriously, then they won't have a problem.
Last thing before we get out of here, the Celtics, came back and I've thought, like, for long stretches of the series between the Celtics and Heat, the Celtics have looked like the better team. It's just that the minutes that have mattered, the Heat have been the better team. I'm interested in I think the Heat and the Celtics are very Spider-Man pointing meme. Mm-hmm. But if there's a team that you would rather avoid here, which would it be?
Like, I'm not afraid of any of either of them.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I think we beat either of them. I think Miami is a better matchup for us. Beating Boston in the finals would be sweet, but that would require them winning another game, which I would never root for. So I would like to see them lose in 5. I think this goes 7, and I think Miami pulls it out. But I think Boston wins game 4. I think Miami's a little better. I think Butler waited a little too long to I think he's got to be a little more aggressive a little earlier. But we we match up, I think, a good deal better with Miami than we do with Boston, even though I think we beat either team.
Yeah, I feel the same as you. And because of that, I would prefer to see Boston. Just like knocking off Boston to tie Boston.
I get
for
it. I get
all-time
it.
titles. Like, I know you're anti-rooting for Boston at any turn, no matter what the situation is.
Yeah.
But seeing as I told George Sedano, we were texting back and forth the other day, and he was like, so all Lakers fans are Heat fans right now, right? And I said, I think early on in the series, yeah. But if it becomes pretty apparent that the Lakers are better than both Miami and Boston, I think Lakers fans will want to see Boston in the finals. But, you know, you don't want to mess around with the basketball gods here. And I think in this spot, given that the Lakers are such heavy, I think they're pretty heavy favorites at this point and I think Vegas agrees that the Lakers are heavy favorites to win a championship here. You just take care of the team in front of you, and you don't complain on your way to the title. And this is the first time I said it. I think during the Houston series, I think I said at some point that, you know, this really feels like the Lakers feel like they can win a championship. But this is the first time all season where I'm saying the Lakers should win a championship here. And that's pretty crazy. I can't believe we got here.
And we are 6 wins away from that.
Amen. All right. Let's call this one here. The Lakers again win 105-103 on Anthony Davis's gigantic 3-pointer at the buzzer to do so. I think the Lakers tweeted out Lakers that have hit game-winning playoff shots. It was like West, it was Kobe, it was Magic. I think Kareem was on there. And now Anthony Davis, Metta World Peace was on there, which like made me laugh. Just like
that putback in 2010 against Phoenix.
I almost quote tweeted it with like the him like at the podium, like acknowledge me, please.
Yeah.
But yeah, Anthony Davis adds his name to that list, and it feels like Anthony Davis is going to be adding his name to a lot of Lakers lists here moving forward, which is a pretty cool deal.
His number is going to be up on that wall one day, man.
Fuck yeah. All right. Let's have a great rest of your day, everybody. I will be back to answer your guys' questions on your iTunes questions here tomorrow in tomorrow's show. And then Pete will be back to recap Tuesday's game. So have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's. Stay safe out there. And we'll talk to you.
Hi guys, this is Josh Lloyd, host of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast. The NBA is back, so that means that fantasy basketball is back in one form or another. We've got daily fantasy, but there's also some fantasy leagues with the resumption of play with these 8 regular season games in Orlando, and Locked On Fantasy Basketball is going to have you covered. It's not just for fantasy basketball though, because we recap all of the games across the NBA, so if you're looking for a broad overview of the action across the league every day, Locked On Fantasy Basketball is the podcast